5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
What are you afraid of? And what do your fears reveal to you about yourself? That's what we're going to be talking about today on Ignition. Welcome to the show. I'm your host, Dr. Chris Bergwald, and we want to set your faith ablaze so that you might live the adventure that comes from a relationship with Jesus Christ. Before we get into the topic of fear and our fears, we want to remind you that we love listener feedback. So if you got questions about today's episode, or if you have ideas for future episodes, please contact us. The easiest way to do so is by email, and the address is ignition@sfcatholic.org. Again, ignition@sfcatholic.org. I'm joined as, not always, I can't say always anymore because I've been bringing some other people in, trial.
Get sick of me.
Trials. See if I can find somebody else.
I have to tell you that as soon as you said, okay, I want everybody to know.
This is Renae Kranz,
I do not,
by the way.
yes. I was not told what the topic was today.
Yeah, not at all.
And that is the thing you say, what some of your fears? Not knowing what's going to happen here at Ignition. I don't like it. I know if I'd say I'm afraid of it, but I don't like it.
So before we talk about your fears, Renae.
Oh, great.
Real quick, who are you?
Oh, we haven't done this for a while. Renae Kranz, I am the Director of Communications for the diocesan offices. From Watertown originally, grew up in Castlewood, married to Ryan for maybe 20 years in like a week.
Yeah, as folks are actually listening, you will have just celebrated your 20th.
No, it's the 8th.
Yeah, but
this is a week after.
Sunday.
Okay, yes.
Actually, later than that, I think. Actually.
So, yes.
Yeah,
20 years on June 8th.
Yeah.
So we're excited.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thanks.
So actually, that's going to tie in.
Oh, okay.
To our topic for today. Let me tell you a story, Renae.
Oh, story time. Let me get snuggled
story
in.
Time. Story time. It was a dark and stormy night. I am reading a Dean Koontz novel right now.
Okay, I have a funny, real quick.
Please.
When we used to live in Rapid City, and whenever I would have to drive back to this side of the state by myself, I got Dean Koontz novels on tape at the time, on tape or CD, because that was how I could stay awake. Because I hate scary stories and scary movies and scary books, but boy, that kept me awake.
So it's funny because for those of you who maybe are listening, when I said Dean Koontz novel, there's a little shiver.
Yes.
And went throughout Renae's body. So I've only read a few, like this is probably the one I'm reading, 77 Shadow Street. 77, I think it's like 77 Shadow Street, something like that. It's published about in 2011, 14, somewhere in there. Mm-hmm. This is only like the fourth Dean Koontz novel I've ever read before. I've read a number of Stephen King novels, and have I read any scary or horror movies or books beyond that? I'm not sure that I have. So okay, well, let's stick with Koontz for just a minute, and we'll wander. So I'm reading. Actually, no, I'm going to wander. So
I'm so shocked.
I never watched scary movies growing up.
Yeah.
Never watched them. It was final. I think the first horror movie that I watched was Pet Sematary, and I was a senior in high school. And then like in college, I got it. I started watching more of them, and so And I read some novels, like I read some King in high school, but movies, not really much of until college. But I don't like. They're not definitely not my go-to fiction.
Right.
So
okay.
I this may surprise you, Renae, but I read mostly theology.
I'm so surprised.
Shocking.
So surprised. That's yeah.
But a few times, usually around Christmas. It's not Christmas right now, obviously.
You should branch out once in a while.
I do. At least once a year. So G.K. Chesterton, I think that counts as not theology because it's fiction.
Well, yeah.
Well, his fiction stuff, but others. So I read some Catholic fiction, but others too. For a while, I was into the teen dystopias for some reason,
like
Maze
as an
Runner.
adult?
Yeah,
oh, okay.
Maze Runner. The what's the one with the girl and she's the bird fire. Thank you, Hunger Games, the bird fire. You know that.
Hunger Games is actually one of my favorites.
Hunger Games. Well, we were at the library a month or so ago, and browsing the shelves. Maybe I pick up some fiction. I just finished a Chesterton novel, which I loved. But let me try something else. So I grabbed this Kranz novel. So I'm reading. Have you figured out where we're going yet?
I don't even remember.
Okay, good. I would have been amazed if you were. So in this novel, one of the this is a trope that you see a lot in horror. You know what a trope is? Mm-hmm. What's a trope?
Basically like a stereotype, kind of.
Yeah. So a trope, So in this case, it's a plot device trope in horror movies. So I'm reading this novel, and there's a couple characters, and I'm only about halfway in, but there's a couple characters who are being changed into something creaturely.
Okay.
Probably monstrous.
This is in a Dean Koontz.
Dean Koontz.
Okay.
Yeah, they're being changed.
He's changed things since I read it. Well,
Really?
gosh, that was like 2000.
Yeah, really. Well,
I don't remember. I don't know if I could
but
remember.
what were they about? I mean,
There was one. I swear it was in an amusement park. I'm thinking.
okay. See, he straddles the line between just sort of a thriller and horror. Like he's
Okay,
not, you know.
okay.
In fact, when I was looking for a fiction, I was, what's a good thriller? His name came up. Is it more horror? Well, he straddles that
Okay.
line. So people are being changed into something else, and so 25-ish years ago, I watched a John Carpenter movie, In the Mouth of Madness. I think Sam Neill is in it. Have you seen it?
No, I just remember hearing about it.
Okay, Sam Neill is in it, and in it, there's a character, a woman, like Sam Neill's kind of like partner as they're investigating something that's going on, and she also, something happens to her, and where she's being changed into something else, and this Dean Koontz novel, which I'm reading now, and this John Carpenter movie from 25 years ago or so, both of them, the characters say things like, I'm becoming something else, or I'm losing myself. So in the movie, I'm losing myself, and she was terrified by this. She was losing herself. Mm-hmm. In the book, these characters, they're like, this is weird. I'm okay with this. I'm losing myself, but I'm okay with it. This is the thing that occurred to me as I'm reading this. So it's a trope in horror fiction. We're scared of losing ourselves.
Okay.
What was
our life, I suppose.
What,
ourselves. Okay.
But because they're not dying,
right?
They're becoming something else.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
What was the question I asked you early on that I've asked you in a while? At the beginning of the show.
What am I afraid of?
No.
Oh.
Nope. Before that.
Who am I?
Yes. Oh. I did that on purpose. Renee's like, what's happening?
I answered it wrong, apparently.
No, you didn't.
I'm a child of God, Chris. What else do you want to know?
Who am I? Mm-hmm. So what occurred to me as I was reading this I connect this dot. I thought vividly of this scene in the movie from 25 years ago. There's a primordial fear within the human heart about losing our identity or around identity. Mm-hmm. So in the case, whether it's like a Stephen King or a Dean Koontz or a John Carpenter, one of the things that I don't think they're doing it really consciously. They tap into our deeper fears. Right. Like usually the masters of horror, what makes them a master is they're able to really vividly portray things that almost all of us are deeply afraid of. Mm-hmm. So what occurred to me here is, I just like this wondering around the reality that we have a fear. I think most or all of us have this fear of losing our identity, mm-hmm. which goes back to the question of, well, who am I? So I'm yeah.
And people can connect their identity to kind of bizarre things sometimes.
So
that they maybe shouldn't be connecting.
Where are you going with that?
Like they connect their identity too much to what their job is,
sure.
or that they're a wife or a mother, and that isn't your only or most important, identity.
Right. So it's part of who I am,
Right.
but does it go to the heart
Right.
of who I am?
Right.
No, as you just said. So I wasn't trying to test you or trick you, but I knew that I wanted to talk about identity, and I've asked for a while, well, who
Right.
are you, Renae?
Right.
I've said recently, I don't know if it was on Ignition or somewhere else, my long time, your predecessor in this chair, my longtime co-host, Father Andrew Dickinson, at the beginning of almost every show, every episode of Ignition, I'd ask Father Dickinson, who are you? He'd say, I'm a beloved God, a beloved son of the Father. He'd go on.
He's a
Temple of the Holy
priest. He knows
Spirit.
that stuff.
Right, exactly. Most of us misidentify ourselves. We know our name,
Right.
but in terms of our deeper identity, we do get it wrong. And when we get our identity wrong, bad things will happen. Now, if we get our identity only a little bit wrong, then nothing
Right.
significant. But the more we get identity wrong,
Yeah.
we're more inclined.
Even a little wrong can take you down a road that gets it more and more wrong as
Exactly.
you go. If you don't remember where it is.
Yep. So what I want to do is talk a little bit more then. So in light of this, again, horror trope of identity, I want to talk. That's what I want to talk about. So what is our identity, and how do we get our identity wrong, and that sort of thing. So that's what we're going to talk about on the rest of the show. But if you're just tuning in, you're listening to Ignition. I'm your host, Dr. Chris Bergwald, talking today with Renae Kranz about scary stuff like losing ourselves as we become monstrous things, or more realistically, losing ourselves as we lose sight of our authentic identity, if we ever had it to begin with.
Right. But I think there's also this idea of fear when we're trying to grow closer to God, in that we might lose ourselves in the identity we have currently, and there's a fear behind that.
Yeah.
Is that where you were going to go next?
Well, that's I had a few different options. That's definitely one thing that's true. But before we go further, I want to step back to kind of the premise here. I think being aware of our fears actually is part of our growth in self-awareness. So you not knowing what the heck we're going to talk about in Ignition, what is that a manifestation of? I'm sympathetic to that. I know what it is. If I were in your shoes, let me go first, because in case it's going to be easier for you if I acknowledge this, because it's unfair to you. For me, it'd be a lack of control.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is for me. Yeah, and I will freely admit that. Like, I like to have control over things if I can.
Yep.
And so when I don't, it doesn't bother me as much in this Ignition setup, because I know you're not going to set me up for complete failure. But if I don't have control over some things, sometimes it can be a little scary.
Right. It can. Yeah. And that I mean, there's a whole thing about, I think it's true for all of us with our control issues. It's a manifestation of how we don't yet have as much trust and faith in God as a Heavenly Father who cares for us and loves us in every detail of our lives.
Right.
And that's certainly true for me. I mean, I'm growing. I've grown a lot, but I still got a lot of ways to go. So on this, I mean, I think this is a worthwhile tangent. Just yesterday, as we're recording, my wife and my oldest flew to Washington, D.C. Just for a visit. Air travel is, I love it because it's so convenient, but I hate it because I'm not in control.
Right.
So in this case, we had our tickets bought and everything's fine. Well, all of a sudden, when we went to, when they were checking in like the day before they flew, a couple days ago, my wife is on standby for the first leg of the trip. What the heck's going on here?
Yeah.
So yesterday afternoon, I was angsty. You didn't see me much, but I was angsty yesterday afternoon because what if?
Now your daughter's flying by herself.
Yeah, exactly. Now, there's 11. So I checked the standby list. There's 8 of them. My wife is number 4. There's 11 available seats. She's going to get on.
Right.
She's going to get a spot. When I called the airline the day before, they said, nope, she'll have a spot. But still, it wasn't certain. And so that lack of knowledge, my lack of control of the situation was causing me angst. What if?
Right.
So that's for me a way in which I want to know things because knowing gives me some sense of control. So I'm totally sympathetic.
Yes.
But again, that reveals when I'm attentive. Okay, Chris. Oh, so yesterday, because I was asking people, would you please pray that this works out? 2 people independently said, God loves your wife and your daughter more than you do. He cares for them more than you do. 2 people independently. All right, Lord, I get the message, but still, I'm so my control issues coming out.
It's hard to trust sometimes.
So, but when we're attentive to our fears, they show us things about ourselves. And sometimes that's hard because you're seeing, your warts, your
weaknesses.
But in order for us to be healed of those weaknesses, we have to bring them into the light.
Right.
Emily and I talked about that recently, actually on Ignition as well. So it'll be, for people who have been listening lately, that'll be a familiar thing. But let's get back to this whole identity thing. So when we're, you had said, so the direction you were going to go, which I want to follow this trail for a little bit, as we grow in relationship with God, there's a fear there. So say more about what you were saying.
Well, as we make the decision, I think, usually it's because you're making a decision. It's not just happening without you knowing it. But to grow closer to God, there's always this thought in the back of your mind, well, what about my life is going to change? What am I going to lose? Because I think we always are wondering, what are we going to lose? How am I going to be different? And am I going to like that? Will it be worth it?
Right. So there's a recognition that if I'm drawing closer to God, that's probably going to change me.
Right.
And am I
And
going
for
to...
some reason, we're wondering if that's a good thing.
Right.
We shouldn't even wonder that. It should be like, well, duh, it's a good thing. But
so why do you think we wonder that? I have a thought, but what's your thought on why do we have this fear, suspicion that we're not going to like the new us?
I guess I would say that if you look around you, more people than not are more secular and not really getting closer to God. They might seem happy on the surface. They're like, well, if I do this, am I going to be as happy as they are? Am I going to be something else? And it's just, we don't have good experiences trusting in how that turns out with other people. So I think that we're just always scared of that.
Yeah.
At least that's how it is for me. There's not always a good track record of trusting people.
Right.
So we equate people with God.
God, right. So I'm glad you used the word trust again. Yeah, I think this is, so theologically speaking, to use more theological, technical language here, I think this is a manifestation of original sin in us.
Right.
We don't trust God.
Right.
We have this, within us, there is this doubt that he really cares for us. And that is within our psyche. That is the effect in us, the mark, if you will, the stain. Even though we're baptized,
right,
we're cleansed of original sin, that is the remnant. That's the effect, one of the effects of original sin in us, that we have the suspicion that God is really, because it goes back to what did Satan say to Eve?
Did God really say?
Did God really say? Planting that doubt about who God is,
right,
about who God is in her, and then that carries over for the rest of humanity.
Right.
We harbor this secret doubt. Well, it's sometimes not secret. This doubt, secret or not, about who God is,
right,
and about his care and concern for us.
And is that rooted then in pride? Or is that a different thing than that?
I think they're related to one another. Is it rooted in prayer? That's a good question. I'm not sure. I have to think about that a little bit. But they're definitely related to one another.
Yeah.
I'm not sure which comes first, to be honest.
And if you start to doubt whether or not you can trust or God or who he is, then you're definitely going to doubt who you are.
Exactly.
Or understand, not even understand who you are.
Right. So I think that's one way so we can be afraid as we're, the other thing you said, we look at other people who are living more secular lives and they seem to be happy and living the good life, and am I going to be miserable? That's also, I think, a manifestation of that lack of trust, that doubt that I'm going to be authentically fulfilled, truly happy. We doubt that.
Right. It's that, are you sure I don't need those things, God?
Exactly.
Because I kind of want them.
Right.
So you're sure I don't need them?
Yep. The other direction, I think, the other way to think about, and we've touched on this already, about our fear of losing our identity. So this whole idea of our identity is going back to what we were saying early on. We get our identity wrong.
Mm-hmm.
We tie up the heart of our identity is we've missed the mark somehow. We identify it maybe as the examples that you gave. We're a worker of some sort, or a spouse, and those things are both true. Just to use those examples, I work for the Diocese of Sioux Falls. My role here is part of my identity, but it's not the heart of my identity. I am Jermaine's husband. I am Elena, Carl, Noel, Lexi, Mercedes' dad. Those get to the closer, more than what I do for that, closer to the heart, but they're still not the heart of who I am. So those are good ways in which we can sort of misidentify ourselves. There are other more obvious ways in which we can misidentify ourselves. I think the worker thing, we can sort of get too tied up in our jobs. Maybe too consumed. I feel like we've talked about this before. I'm about to give a sports analogy. We can become too consumed with, the Green Bay Packers. I'm surprised you don't have your Packers mug with you.
I don't really like to have it on
because you carry it around with you all the time.
I do, and I wave it
do,
around.
which I think is an illustration of your misidentification of your identity with the Green Bay Packers. Casey's agreeing over there. He'd say it, but he's not on mic. Otherwise, we'd hear him saying, absolutely, Dr. Bergwell, you're correct. So those ways, or maybe following a particular music artist or group, you're a groupie. Right.
It could even be being too focused in on what your race is, perhaps.
Yeah, there you go.
It can be something like that.
Yep.
That might seem like a good, just as being a father seems like a good.
It is a good.
But if you focus too much on it and put so much weight on it in your life, it can become a problem.
Exactly. So there's a hierarchy in terms of my identity. Some things are more important or more central to my identity than others. So the address where I live is a truth about me.
The fact that you're an East Sider?
Yes, exactly. I'm an East Sider is definitely, as you know, part of my identity. Maybe too much. So it's important that we get it right. So what's the top rung, or what's the heart of my identity? And again, this is going back to context, horror movie, horror book, trope. We're afraid of losing ourselves, but who am I really to begin with?
Right.
Having a strong sense of the heart of my identity is so important so that I don't lose myself.
Right. Maybe most of us have actually already lost ourselves and we need to go back.
Maybe some of us have really never discovered who we are at the heart of it.
So it's not really about losing yourself. It's about losing the fake self and discovering the real self.
The real self, exactly. Yeah.
But that too is scary.
Yes, it is. Yeah. Because in that false identity, I can find comfort because it's familiar.
Yep.
And so I have to peel that off, if you will.
Ooh, that's a nice horror film.
Totally is. We got to get him on.
Casey,
Mike.
I know. I'd like to know what's going through his head now.
I know. So who are we, in fact, at the heart of our identity? You already said this earlier.
Yeah.
And you said
sons and daughters of God.
But I think I
am a child of God. Yeah.
I need to I don't sit with that and reflect on that, and most importantly, pray with that enough. I can just say it,
right?
Because I know it's true. I got the catechism here. I know the
and then walk away and continue on with work.
Oh yeah, I'm a son of God. I'm a daughter of God. Yeah. That's nice. Nice little pat myself on the head. No, we.
Sorry.
There's a lot coming from over there in this episode. We need to internalize this reality so that we don't lose ourselves.
Right.
We have to.
How do we do that? Do you have a magic wand to help us do that?
What is it? Simple but not easy.
Right.
I do think it's a matter of sitting with it, reflecting on it, and praying with it.
Okay.
I really think.
And more than once.
Yeah. Like an ongoing basis.
Yes.
On an ongoing basis. So I've shared recently because it's a strong thing. It made an impact on me recently. This goes back to during Lent. This occurred to me in prayer how much I tie up the fruitful use of my gifts with my identity.
Okay.
So this, the idea of hierarchy, like God has given me, so the talents that I have,
Right.
the gifts that He's given me, my passion for teaching people about the faith, for instance, my ability, to the extent that I have some, to teach fruitfully the faith to other people. That's an example of I can tie up my identity and therefore my value and my worth too much in the fruitful use of those gifts that He's given me. So time and time again, He's invited me, and I just you grow in self-recognition, self-awareness. I can see when I'm doing that, and so it calls me back to, okay, Lord, help me to remember who I am. Help me to remember, like to really become aware of the heart of my identity is that I am your beloved Son, that you love me, and you love me apart from how fruitfully I'm using my gifts. You want me to do that. It's good that I do that.
It's something that He wants from us.
Yeah.
And it, definitely good for us.
But it's just like, so for me with my kids, like do I want to see them be quote unquote successful, use their gifts well? Yes. But the heart of their identity, like, not the heart of it, but for me, I love them because they're my son.
Right.
They're my daughter. And even more so true are God with us. He rejoices and delights in us because of who we are, even apart from what we do with the gifts that He has given to us. So we've got about half a minute left, Renae. Thoughts on that in terms of fear, and your thoughts on what can we do to more deeply internalize our identity? I
mean, I think you said very well that, just praying about it, sitting with it. We have to keep reminding ourselves of it. And I really need to, because I think I forget that a lot. Yeah. I can get wrapped up in work pretty quickly.
Amen. Yeah, and I think maybe to be even more concrete, so praying with it, but being explicit with God. God, help me to remember who I am, to internalize at a deeper level this identity, the reality that I am above all a beloved child of you, the Father who loves me.
And the litany of trust might be a good one.
Amen.
I love that one. Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Renae.
Yeah, thank you.
And that will wrap up this episode of Ignition. Again, you can email us, ignition@sfcatholic.org, with any thoughts, ideas for future episodes. And until next time, may God bless you.